Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paul, and I'm not feeling like much of a nerd today. How many legal technologists does it take to screw in a light bulb? Just one, but if Paul's controlling the webinar, it might take an extra 4 minutes to start it. But here we are with the 2015 June. No, it's not June yet, is it? Mary Jo, is it June? It's May. May 2015 TABS 3 Virtual User Group Meeting. It's a lot to say. Obviously, I'm having trouble with that. Today, we are talking about check registers and trust. Mary Jo's going to cover that, and I'm talking about the income statement and balance sheet. I'm kind of taking over Mary Jo's role of talking about reports today and talking about those reports, those key reports from the general ledger system. But before we get into that, a little bit of housekeeping. This right here is your GoToWebinar control panel. If you are seeing this on your screen, it is because you have not pressed this little button that looks like an arrow pointing to the right, because had you pressed that button that looks like an arrow pointing to the right, you would have had this slide off the right-hand side of your screen. That's what that button does. It gets this out of the way so you can see what's behind it, which is probably my screen. So that's a good thing. You want to get rid of that. And when you get rid of that, by sliding it off with this button that points to the right, that button will instantly change to one that points to the left. Why? Because that's how you get it back. If you want the control panel back, all you do is click that button again. It'll slide back in off the corner of your screen. Now, why would you want it back? Well, because you have a question and you're shy. If you have a question and you want to type it, you can do so here. Don't forget to hit the send button. Leanne, our humble and celebrated, we say celebrated because we had a birthday celebration today. It wasn't Leanne's, but she's celebrated nonetheless. Our humble yet celebrated moderator will recognize that you have a question. She will interrupt Mary Jo or myself at just the right moment. She will ask your question on your behalf, and we will attempt to answer it. Now, I say attempt because sometimes we get off track. Sometimes we're not answering the question that you had intended to ask. So keep typing those follow-up questions here. Keep remembering to hit send, and Leanne, our celebrated moderator, will keep interrupting Mary Jo and myself asking those questions on your behalf. Now, if you're not feeling shy, there's this button here that looks like a hand with an arrow in front of it pointing upward. That means, wait for it, raise your hand. So if you do this, Leanne will still recognize that you have a question. She will still interrupt me or Mary Jo at the exact opportune moment, but instead of reading your question on your behalf, she will unmute your microphone and you can ask your own question. So A, you got to make sure you have a microphone or that you're dialed in through a computer or a phone line that enables you to talk. B, this is a no snack zone, no Fritos, no Doritos. You will be live until we're done answering your question. Because of that, you get to interrupt us yourself if we're not answering your question properly, if we get off track, if you have follow-up questions. That chain or that line of communication will remain open until you're done or we're done answering your question, and then we'll mute your microphone back up and you can go back to eating your Fritos. So, without further ado, I do want to mention that version 15.1 and 15.2, I know I've been talking about this forever, they get sunsetted next month. What does that mean? That means if you are on version 15.1 or 15.2 and are currently enjoying all the benefits of support and maintenance, even though you're not taking advantage of the fact that you could have updated to the latest version, you will lose those benefits. You won't be able to call for support anymore, and it will become increasingly more difficult to update your software as you let that time period go on and on and on after it's gone into sunset. So if you're on version 15.1 or 15.2, please be sure to get over to the new version of the software before it gets sunsetted. And how do you tell what version you're on? You click on Help. In any program, Tabs, Practice, Master, APGL, Trust, any program, click on Help and About, and it will tell you up top what the version is that you have installed on your computer. So now, without any further ado, I'm going to click this button, and Mary Jo is going to start to speak, and while she's doing that, I'm going to take her to the trust accounting software.
All right. So we're going to talk about the 2 check register reports that we have in trust. And I'm just going to go over to our reports because you can see them under the report tab. And I don't think I have keyboard and mouse there, Paul. So if you could please give that to me.
Because Paul messed up the webinar and we had to restart it. So hold on one second. Do you know any lawyer jokes while we're waiting, Mary Jo?
I don't know any lawyer jokes.
Okay. And of course I'm having trouble finding this. Hold on one second. There we go. Okay. You should have...
I got it. Yay. All right. So under reports, we have 2 check register reports. Well, actually 3. I'm sorry. We have 3. One is the check register by trust account. One is the check register by check number, and the other is the check register by payee. So there's several different ways, obviously as the names imply, that you can run your check register to see what you have out there. Now, I'm just going to bring a couple of things to your attention within each of these reports because sometimes they can do a little more than just be a check register. So let's start with the one by check register by trust account. And this one is pretty basic on the first screen. Our trust reports are fairly similar in this regard. You can do this for just one trust account, or you can do multiples, or just leave it blank to do all. So whether you want to range or you want to use the multiple feature, that is available. You can search by the name search. You can do it by bank account. If you have several different trust accounts set up or IOLTA accounts set up, you can change this to be bank account 1, 2, 3, 1 to 3, leave it blank for all. You also can do the same thing with the responsible attorneys. So if there is a responsible attorney you need to run this for, you can do that. And then open date range as well. On the transaction tabs, this is the transaction date range. So don't get this confused with this date out here. This is the date you opened the trust account. So if you want everybody, regardless of what date it is, but you want only transactions through April, for instance, April 1st through April 30th, we could just limit the date of the transaction itself. We can include the saved or the purged or both. And then this one, you can see down here, this is grayed out. We don't have the ability to select a check number or whether it's checks, deposits, or EFTs. This is just a check register by trust account, so we don't have a lot of selection down there for that part of it. On the options screen, we can include trust with no activity. So they might have a balance, but they haven't had any activity in April. We still want to see that balance. And we can also sort this by responsible attorney or subtotal it by trust account, yes or no, and then by alpha or numeric. I'm just going to leave it wide open. I'm in sample data. I'm just going to preview this to kind of give you an idea. So it's going to take, this is by attorney. It is sorting it out by attorney. So I have Michael Jensen, and he has one trust account, and here's all the activity that we've had for all ranges. Now, if I had limited my range, I could have just seen those transactions. It's not giving me a ton. It's just telling me whether it was a deposit or a check, what the number was, or if it was an EFT, and then what the description and the amounts were. And then what matter was underneath. So here is, just that, and then the total amount down here of each. So, and then you have grand totals for each of the accounts. So just really simple. This is check register by trust account. We're going to go through by each trust account and then see what we've got. Let's go into our check register by check number. This is probably my favorite to use because on this one, again, I still have, I don't have as many tabs, but I can do my transaction date range, but this time I can specify a specific check number, or I can say I just want checks, deposits, or EFTs, or all three, and I like to do that. If I'm looking for an EFT and I know it's an EFT and I just need to find out who it is, when you're reconciling and you have an amount out there on the reconciliation screen and it's a deposit, but it doesn't tell you who it is, that this is a great report to find that out. You know the transaction is within a certain time frame. You know that it was a deposit or a check or an EFT, and you're just trying to find out which matter it belongs to. This report is perfect for that. You again can include saved and purged entries if you want to. And then the options, you can limit the bank account. You can do totals only or running balance. And on this report, you also can include your voided checks or just see all of your voids. So this is, again, if you had everything open over here, but you just want to see the voided checks, you could do that. And you can limit it to whether you want reconciled, outstanding, or both. So a lot of flexibility in this little report that you could find out all kinds of bits and pieces of information depending on what combination of boxes that you choose. Again, I'm going to just leave it wide open here so that you can see this. And now I'm getting it by bank account, and I'm also getting then check numbers, deposits, all of that. But then this is the key. I can see whose it belongs to, and then who it was paid to. And then here's my running balance. I'm showing that on there so I can see my my ending balance there. And again, they have a couple of trust accounts set up here. So here's bank account 2, and down here at the bottom I'll get my totals. And so that is a great report if you're doing reconciliation or just to print that out and see what's going on. And then the last one is by payee. Occasionally you want to see all of the checks that you wrote to ABC Insurance Company or, you know, XYZ medical provider. So this one is a good report to find that information. Now this one, you just have your date range, and you could do a check number if you're looking for a specific check number, and no EFT no checks, deposits, EFT selection here. But on the options, you can select a certain payee, or again, leave it wide open, and you have some other things here to include voided checks, start each payee on a new page, or only include transactions with no payee. Sometimes you've just wrote it out to a blank, you haven't put one in, because it does allow you to do that. You might have an EFT or something out there that does not have a payee in, and you want to find out why not. Somebody skipped that line, they put it in the memo instead of the payee box, whatever happened, you can even get a list of those. So again, I'm just going to leave it wide open just to show you all of the selections here that you have. Here's our payee, here's the check number and the date and the amount, and then what trust it came out of, and the description. So this or the trust number, I should say, because here's your payee that you're writing it to, but which trust account did it come out of? So this is very helpful information. At the bottom of this report, again, it's going to give us a grand total of everything that we've done for checks and EFTs. So 3 really helpful reports, and you can get a lot of information out there, even if it's not just a check register. So don't think of it as just, oh, I'm just going to get a list of all my checks, because you can get some other information on there as well. Paul?
Awesome. Well, I'm going to switch over to a different piece of software. I'm going to switch over to General Ledger, and I'm going to talk about 2 reports. And I'm going to explain that in all likelihood, one of them is a report that you'll look at quite a bit every month, all the time. And the other one is probably one that you might never look at. And I'll explain what I mean by that, but let's get over here to General Ledger first real quick. One is the income statement, and the income statement is kind of like the bread and butter of your particular firm and its profitability. So that's the one, obviously, that you're going to look at least once a month, and probably more often, because in a properly integrated billing and accounting system where your accounts payable and general ledger and billing are all hooked together, everything that happens flows into that income statement right away. So when money comes in the door, it's instantly in the income statement. When checks are written and they go out the door, it's instantly in the income statement as an expense. So you can always get a very clear picture at that exact point in time of where you stand financially for the month, for the year, and see where you are. And the other one is the balance sheet. And the balance sheet isn't quite as exciting. I'll show it to you. But it's not quite as exciting because it usually isn't looked at very much. It's something that your accountant may care about because it contains those boring things like assets and long-term liabilities. But it is there, and some firms do look at it on a monthly basis, regardless of whether it's as exciting as the income statement. So let's start with the income statement. And when you're doing this, it knows what month you think it thinks you're in. Now, keep in mind, my system thinks in our demo data, it thinks today is 11/17/14. So that's where it thinks we are. So it thinks we might either be looking at an October or a November calendar month. We select which year we want first, and it will show you all the different years that you have data in the system for. It'll default to this current year, and then it defaults to either last month or this month. And let's look, for instance, at a November income statement. You can tell it whether or not you want to print the account number. Most people don't. Maybe the bookkeeping department would like to see that, but usually not the attorneys. You can tell it whether you want to print zero balance accounts. For instance, if you haven't had any office supply expenses month, do you want to see that with a zero next to it, or do you just want to see the things that make up the total? You can tell it then with check boxes which of these 3 things you want. Do you want year-to-date, yes or no? Do you want quarter-to-date, yes or no? And do you want month-to-date? And then, as you noticed, when we select year-to-date, it's going to let us determine what the beginning of the year is for year-to-date figures. Most often, that's January. We can also print percentages. We can print budgets. We can print last year. Most people are going to print cents and amounts. Most people are going to want to print commas and amounts. And the criteria page is just something that shows you how you did this. Now, you can also go back here and select accounts, but people rarely do that. When you're printing an income statement, it's not a matter of wanting to look at a certain account. An income statement is a summary of all the accounts, how they brought money into the firm, how the ones that are expense related took money out of the firm, and what your bottom line is. So it really doesn't usually make much sense at all to select a range of accounts because an income statement is a view of all those accounts. If you are set up for departments, however, you do have the ability to say, I only want this department or that department or the other department, or in this instance, we're saying we want to see all departments. So again, it comes into this option page. This is where mostly you're filling things out, but you can go back and select a specific department. I'm going to preview this one. We'll see if our mythological law firm is making money or losing money this month. Now, I told you that I thought this was a report that people are going to print out many times a month. I didn't mention, but I feel very strongly that if the integration is set up to the minute level that attorneys want to see on an income statement, that a lot of times this is one of the only reports that gets printed out all month. Now, that's not always the case, but the point is, if you're integrating properly and you're allocating your money in income on the income statement the way you want to see it, broken down by person, broken down by office, broken down by type of law, however you want to see it, then you can get a very clear picture, a very pinpoint, precise picture of the firm's financial situation, all the way down to who brought the money into the firm. Now, in this particular example, we chose to show November and also year to date. So we're looking at the overall. And we start out with income, we list it, we have the totals, and then we get into expenses. We have the ability, when we're defining the chart of accounts and how this is going to look, to set up totals so we can break things down by salaries and then total those, and personnel expenses and then total those. And as we go down through here, we get into things like office supplies and rent, and they're not doing too well. They're losing a bit of money. So, and that's why this appears in red. And they're at a loss. Now, let's go back a little bit real quick. If I say that I want to see also quarter to dates and I want to compare to last year and print percentages, this report gets a little big, but I do want to show you that we can do all of these things. So here's a report that shows November this year and last year, this quarter this year and last year, the year so far this year and last year, and you're seeing percentages by each of these numbers. So this is 11% of income was miscellaneous, and of course total income is 100. So here's the same report in a much more granular sort of level where you're seeing a lot of detail. And keep in mind, you can mix and match. You can decide whether or not to show last year. You can decide which of these or all of these or what combination of these month to date, year to date, and quarter to date and year to date we want to see. And we can decide on a case-by-case basis whether or not we want to show those percentages. So that's the income statement. Let me back out of here. Now, I brought you in here by clicking on my main menu income statement, but you may have your main menu configured differently. You will always find these reports under the Reports tab. And so here we have the income statement, here we have the balance sheet. So let's go into the balance sheet. Same sorts of questions, only not quite so much comparison. Do we print the account number? Do we print last month and this month? Do we print last year? Do we print zero balance accounts? Sometimes people would want to see this in a balance sheet, whereas most often in an income statement you don't. Again, most people are wanting to see commas and cents in their amounts. And again, we have this ability to select departments and accounts, but again, it's not something that we often do. Here, we still have the ability to select which calendar month and also to select which reporting period. We'll get into this detailed summary in a minute. I forgot about that on the income statement. Let's go look at this in the balance sheet. And so here we have assets, total current assets. We have some fixed assets. Some firms will have this sort of information. Some firms won't. It depends on how you've set up your books and how you depreciate your assets. We might have some liabilities. We're always going to have retained earnings somewhere down here a little bit further. We might have some equity and some liabilities as far as loans. And retained earnings is a calculated figure based on what you have in the other accounts. It's actually this retained earnings account that makes everything balanced. So your total liabilities and equity is 79.1. And if you go back up here and look at your total assets, you'll see that those should also be 79.1. That's what a balance sheet is. It should be in balance. And this, as I say, is usually not something that the attorneys are wanting to look at on a monthly basis, simply because this is more accounting related, more bookkeeping related information, whereas the income statement is more pertinent to them because it tells how much money the firm is making. Now let's go back to that income statement real quick, and I want to show you what I mean when I say detail versus summary. In the detail, just to refresh your memory here, we see everything. So under income, we see the total breakdown and then the total income. When we do a summary report, we're telling it we don't want to see the breakdowns. We still want to see how much total income we had and how much total expenses and how they broke down by group. But it's much more compacted. We don't see any of the detail that would be between these total lines and the beginning of that section. So none of the detail, only the totals and your bottom line. So that, in a nutshell, is the income statement and balance sheet. I do want to show you, I'm not really going to talk about this because it's a whole different topic, this chart of accounts that we see, well, out on my main tab, but also in here. This is how that is ordered. And how you set up your chart, of course, has a lot to do with how you keep your books, but it also has a lot to do with what order things come out in and how they're totaled. You'll see things like header and total accounts in here that show you how these things break down and what order they come into. Again, we're not here to talk about the chart of accounts and how to set it up, but I do want to emphasize that it is the basis for how the income statement and balance sheet look. So that's that. Next month, we'll be talking about rate reports. If you were here last month, you might remember that we promised to talk about all things rate. And when we went to get ready to do the virtual user group meeting last month, Mary Jo and I realized we didn't have enough time to talk about the reports to keep you on top of what's going on. All we really had time to talk about was all the different ways you could set rates for the different matters in your system. So next month, we're going to finish that out, and Mary Jo is going to talk about the rate reports, the way that you can keep track of who's paying what rates for what timekeepers when they work on what matters, what clients are getting billed at what rates. I am going to talk about check registers. Mary Jo talked about them in trust this time, and I'm going to talk about them in accounts payable next time. Remember, version 15.1 and 15.2 are being sunsetted next month. Go to Help, go to About, make sure that you understand whether or not you're on 15.1 and 15.2, and also need to, therefore, understand whether or not you need to worry about it being sunsetted. And Mary Jo's leaning over and going, beta, beta, beta. And we don't really like to call it beta. I'll explain why in a minute. We like to call it pre-release. Version 18 is coming. It's got a lot of really cool stuff. One of them is that we're getting rid totally of period-based reporting, getting into total date-based reporting, which I think is huge. A lot of other neat things. The reconciliations have been reworked, and really they can now pull in your transactions from your online banking. A lot of neat stuff coming out in version 18. And STI is at a point, software technology, the folks at Tabs 3 Practice Master are at a point now where they're getting ready to see who might be willing to help them make the final release look. Just before it gets released, we have people put it in kind of ahead of time, a pre-release sort of a glimpse of that product and actually work with the version 18. If you would like to do that, send an email to me, paul.purdue, like the school, not the chicken, P-U-R-D-U-E, paul.purdue at attorneycomputersystems.com. Now, I'll go here to show you our website, and at the same time you'll be able to see our domain name. So it's paul.purdue, like the school, not the chicken, P-U-R-D-U-E, paul.purdue at attorneycomputersystems.com. Send me that email that says, I would like to beta test or pre-release test version 18, and I'll get it taken care of for you. And the last thing to talk about is our website, of course. If you come here and click on videos and then click on any of our virtual user group meetings, or we have the Paul and Mary Jo show, which is a TV show format that Mary Jo and I take a topic in great detail and go into it. Mary Jo has her eBites video series, very short 3-4 minute videos on very succinct topic. I have my monthly webinar series that we call the Coffee Pot Webinars. And then, of course, we have our World Docs, Practice Master, and Tabs 3 virtual user group meetings. If you click on any of these, you will be taken to the page for that particular video title. In this instance, I've clicked on the Tabs 3 virtual user group meetings. And what you'll see is the registration information for the next month. Now, this is this month, but in a few minutes, Patty will press the magic button, and then it will change to next month. As you scroll down, you will see recorded versions of the videos that we've done in the past in reverse chronological order, and you will see the ability up here to search. So if you're looking for something and you just want to browse, come here and kind of scroll through the videos. If you're specifically looking for something like emailing statements, come here and click on that and search for it, and you'll find all sorts of valuable information here. Please be sure to take advantage of it. That's all we have for today. Everybody have a good rest of the day, good rest of the month, and we will see you next month. Thanks much. Bye-bye.